Welcome to Wine Wednesday. We're focusing on the room again, and I already have Marina with me. I do have some things to share with you first, though. First, most importantly, since we're inviting new people, I just wanted to make clear you don't have to be drinking wine, guys. I do, but you don't have to. And I do always try to share the wines that I come up with and really enjoy. And so I have really I've told you guys before, I really like this acronym Pinot Noir. Inexpensive $10 bottle of wine, and it's so good. Just the flavor's awesome. The smells, everything's great. So anyways, I decided to try this week the Ruby Red Blend, a different blend of the acronym wines, and it's very good. So far I'm like in love with this brand because everything I've tried has been great. So and I think Marina left me. She didn't want to hear about the wine. That's okay. All right. Anyhow, so this week, guys, until someone else does join, we said we were going to talk about the what's safe in a seahorse tank. And I had a guest who was going to come in and share, like at an expert level, what he considers safe and not in a seahorse aquarium. But unfortunately, he has not. He's got personal stuff going on, and I've not been able to contact him. So we're going to do our best because I've seen lots of questions on it in the Seahorse Source group, and so I know it's a topic that's pretty important to people. So I'm trying to get better with this slideshow thing. So Marina's, or whoever just joined, is patiently waiting while I show you guys a couple pictures real quick. And that's if I can find it. Okay, there it is. All right, so I just wanted to show these while I tell you guys about my aquariums. Then I'm going to want to hear what you guys do, and we'll go through some things that are listed online as safe. And I actually, since Lucy usually can't join, I snatched one of her comments to tell you guys what she thinks. But hopefully she will try to join tonight, but you know how it is. And again, anybody can join anytime. All right, so the first thing that I always keep in my seahorse aquariums is macroalgae. And I'm showing you the macroalgae in this slideshow. And you can actually see a soft coral leather in the background too. Looks like I put the skip too fast because I was going to tell you what each of these macros were. But if you have any questions, you can tell me. But these are just some of the unique macroalgae that I kept. That one wasn't supposed to be there. But anyways, that was my aquarium at the height of everything when I was in love with it. And that was actually my favorite macroalgae, the Omeris. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And the seahorses love macroalgae that they can actually hitch on. That's what that last picture was. Codium is like green finger macroalgae, and the seahorses literally would, even when the codium was at the top of the tank, they'd hitch to it. They'd love it, you know. Okay, and actually my slideshow is not working as planned because it's not showing the Gorgonians. So I'm going to turn off the slideshow and just start talking. Okay. Anyways, the other thing that I really like to keep in my aquarium are Gorgonians. And when I say Gorgonians, I want to specify that what I mean is the photosynthetic. Because the non-photosynthetic, which I had pictures of, but they're not working, they require a lot more care. Hey, Ray, what's up?
Oh, not a lot.
Okay, well, I'm going to finish my little spiel because I've kind of been left Marina there hanging too, but I'll be quick. And what I was going to say about Gorgonians is if you're wondering about the different species, I'm not great with the species types. I can just tell you, you know, based on a picture, the big fluffy one, or the one way that I always know that a Gorgonian is photosynthetic is by the color of their polyps. So if you see the really cool, and I had some great pictures, as I said, Gorgonians that have the white polyps, like bright purple Gorgonians with white polyps, or orange, yellow Gorgonians. They're really, really pretty and really cool, but a lot harder to take care of. And because they're non-photosynthetic, you'd think they would be great in a seahorse tank, and I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying that they require feeding because they don't get their energy from light. They have to actually be fed. And so I had a bunch of those in my aquarium. It just was, when you've got seahorses and you're worried about the organics already, feeding extra foods to another organism has always been what I kind of shied away from. And I want to hear what you guys think and if you guys don't mind that. So in my seahorse aquariums, I had the macroalgae, the Gorgonians, photosynthetic, And, the seahorses were extremely happy. One last note that I did want to make about macroalgae, though, is that, and if anybody has a question, always feel free to message or jump in the room. Come on now. But when you're using macroalgae in an aquarium, it's really important to get the right types of macroalgae. Because if you put something like canomorpha or, uh, let's see, even some of the gracilarias, not usually gracilarias, but any of the macroalgae that you would typically put into a refugium, I never put into my aquariums display tanks. And the reason for that, again, I had pictures, but they're not playing right, is that when I did at one point, actually, I hadn't put refugium type macroalgae in the display, but because of my setup, some got up into the display. Oh,
Right types of hydrology.
mute
Because
YouTube or Facebook.
is that I did at one
Mute, guys. Okay, thanks.
refugium
Nope.
hydrology in the display, but because of my
Hey,
setup,
one of you guys has either YouTube or Facebook open, and I can hear it echoing back. So turn it. Yeah, thank you so much. Sorry. I should have given instruction before we started. But anyways, final note is that the macroalgae from the refugium made it up into the tank, and this was a situation where I had this happen in a refugium setting and in a scrubber setting because I hadn't set up properly. And the bottom line is this stuff covered the tank. It grew so fast that it outcompeted any of my display beautiful macroalgae that maybe grew slower, and just took over the tank. I ended up having to literally clear the tank using fenbendazole to like treat the rock. It was it was a mess. So when I say macro, I always like to just make sure to say that out loud. That when I'm talking about macroalgae, I'm talking about display types. I'll try to put together a better little clip or a video or something that goes through the specific species. And what I started to say earlier is when you're looking at the types of Gorgonians or the types of macros and etc. Seahorse Savvy, Alyssa's Seahorse Savvy has an excellent article, which I'll link when we're done, that tells you about the different leather corals that they recommend, the difference between the Gorgonians, different macroalgae, and soft corals that they recommend. And now I'm going to shut up for a minute and ask my two guests. Marina, oh gosh, I forgot one last thing. What I'm really hoping for my guest is to talk about the different fish and other fish that you can keep with seahorses. And I do have backup from Lucy, but I personally have always played it safe. So my seahorse tanks are strictly seahorses with snails. I don't even put crabs in my seahorse tanks because I'm so, focused on the seahorses and worried about them getting hurt. So let me know if you guys use crabs and what other fish you keep. But Marina, sorry for talking so long. What do you put in your seahorse tanks? What do you consider safe?
I consider anything like in terms of corals that won't sting them safe, and fish that won't hurt them or outcompete them for food. So at the moment, I've just got a little yellow coral goby in with my seahorses.
Gobies, good.
Um, and I'll probably add a few more little gobies.
Yeah, gobies are great. Hello, Annette. Hi. And what do you do? Aside, you keep the gobies for fish. What do you do as far as do you have fake decorations, or do you do macros, or do you do coral?
I've got some corals, so I've got mostly morphs, ricks, leathers, a few gorgonians, and some macroalgae.
Yes.
Um, I've got a little bit of zinnia in quarantine as well, which I'll probably put in there. I'm trying to think what else there is. Mostly just soft non-stinging corals.
Yep, and what I'm hearing so far, and we'll ask the other, hi Cheryl, we'll ask the other two guests too, but the things to obviously stay away from would be anything, as Marina very well put, anything that stings. Most of your LPS are kind of out. SPS, the reason that I always say don't keep SPS in a tank is because, as you saw with my macros and my Gorgonians, seahorses pitch. That's what they do. And so if you have SPS corals that are dependent on light and very picky, and a seahorse hitches on it, chances are it's going to be worse for the SPS than the Seahorse, but it's still not going to be a good situation. But Marina, did you have anything else you wanted to say before I ask Ray?
Star polyps. I keep star polyps as well. That's
Ooh.
sort of the only other I can think of.
Yeah, and the other thing you mentioned was if I'm pronouncing it right, Xenia, is that how you say it? Xenia? Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, you saw in anybody watching saw in one of my pictures that I did keep Xenia actually even in a baby tank or adolescent tank. Um, and it's great as long as you are aware of how to control it. Again, just like with macros, they'll grow quickly and they'll spread. I had great luck, never had a problem. They didn't spread all over the tank. I kept them on an isolated rock, and it was great. But anyways, so good points and great points. Ray, have you ever kept other fish or coral in your seahorse tanks?
No, I'm the KISS principle.
What's Kiss?
Keep it simple, stupid.
I knew. I just wanted to hear you say it. um, so I know you.
No,
Go ahead.
at my age, but I believe it should be that way for people until they've gained a lot of experience. Or in my case, because of my age and my various health conditions, I need to keep it simple to be able to look after it. Um, if you've got enough experience under your belt, you want to, take the chance on it with others, then that's fine. Um, not everybody succeeds at it. Sometimes it's luck because it could be a case of you're putting in the right fish, but maybe the store they've come from
Good point.
hasn't been the best. The conditions it's in, and so you put it in the tank, and it carries parasites that the seahorse hasn't grown up with, then they are often vulnerable to them.
Sure.
But in my case, everything's simple. I've got mackerel in there. Um, I had a leather hand coral that I've had for years, but it bit the dust,
Mm.
and I don't know why. Because I've had leathers for 20 years that never died,
Wait, so
and yet this
Ray,
one
so
yeah,
the one that you were talking about a week or two ago that we were kind of discussing and didn't make it?
right,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry. So sorry.
But
Ray, can
the
you
worst
hear me?
part is that I don't know why.
Cheryl, we can hear you.
Okay, I did talk with some of my reefer friends, and they said the finger leathers will periodically do that, where they'll just start dropping all appendages and stuff.
This was a
And
left hand.
yeah, they said that if you leave it alone, it should grow back.
Oh.
This one was disintegrating.
Mm.
Oh,
So sorry to
that's
hear
too
that.
bad.
Right beside it, I have a Kenya tree,
Mm-hmm.
and it does extremely well. And the leather did well until some of the mackerel moved from the rock that the Kenya tree was on. Some had got on to the rock that the leather was on, and once it got to be fairly sizable, that's when I noticed the difference. Now that could be just coincidental. I have no way to know, but
Yeah,
it's the only thing at this point in time. But leathers, like
interesting.
the damn party, sometimes you want to kill them and you can't. Oh, by
Yeah,
the way, just to mention, you're talking about the Xenia.
Yes.
For controlling it, Xenia always wants to move up. So if you've got some that's starting to get too out of control, you put rock rubble just up against it a little bit higher, and it'll move up onto it. Then you can take the rubble off, and it's got the Xenia on it, and take it to the store and
Oh yeah.
trade it in.
Yeah, that's a great plan. Hey, really quick. Hey, welcome. I got to call you Wilson because that's all I know you as. um, but I just wanted to say really quickly, Kim, I see your comment. We love your hi. I don't know why it's repeating. In fact, I can't even comment. So on my end. So I don't know what's wrong. I'm sorry, but we see you. We're glad you're here and hi. and hi. No, I'm just kidding. All right, and Dylan Roberts said you've been fragging Gorgonians to grow for your seahorse tank in the future, the photosynthetic type. Yeah, really cool. Once you get the Gorgonians going on and you can actually grow them like you're talking about, that can literally become a business. And because I know I love them and all seahorse people love them. I don't know anybody who doesn't love Gorgonians. But anyways, hey Philosophish, now you're repeating. Guys, I'm not sure what's wrong with chat. I'm sorry. So don't even worry if it repeats. And sorry, what Ray, did you want to say anything else? About,
No,
what's okay.
like it's hard for me to contribute on fish that are going to be in there because I just don't do it. As I say, it's for my benefit, but I also feel it's for the benefit of the seahorses. Maybe if I was younger, I might do some of the smaller fish. I don't know. But at 77, I'm not about to make things more difficult for me.
Sure.
I'm right there with you.
Well, I can't.
Sorry about that.
I said, I'm right there with you. I keep it simple.
Kiss.
I have macro in my tanks, and
Yeah, you're not as old as I am.
yeah, and I pretty much I don't have anything else. It's seahorses, macro, pitches, thing.
Yep.
And it's just
I had lots of years with my reef tanks and fish only tanks with
Mhm.
scad. I used to have about 1,000 gallons of tanks down in the basement there. But when the health took a downward turn, then something had to go, and the seahorses were the last I got into. So I figured, well, we'll get the rest gone, and I'll just stick with the seahorses.
yeah. Well, I had a bad experience a number of years ago because I bought what was supposed to have been a zoanthid,
Yeah.
and it rapidly took over a rock, which was fine, and it was in a seahorse tank. Until one day, it had been in there over a year, and one of my seahorses dragged his tail across it and hit the substrate convulsing.
Ooh.
And yeah, and I saw another one of my youngsters swimming over toward it, so I stuck my hand in to move the seahorse away before I could get the rock out. It nailed me, and I literally was flat on my butt with my hand and arm packed in ice for over 45 minutes.
And this was what, Cheryl? I missed what you said. Did this?
Well, it turns out it was actually one of the most toxic pallies. It was sold to me as a zoo, and I was at that point. I'm going back over 15 years ago. I didn't know the difference, and it's supposed to be one of the most toxic pallies that you can get. And it was not a pleasant experience. And I took it back to the store I got it from, and one of the guys, it stung him, and he ended up in the ER.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I'm very, very leery of anything that stings around seahorses. It was a very bad experience.
I've already got 2 questions, one for Marina and one for Cheryl, and then we got to get to Miss Wilson. But Cheryl, let me ask you this, because I know that there's much debate about. Actually, let me ask the audience: do we sound okay? If you can't hear us or if we're too loud, please comment. But Cheryl, so one of the big questions that I've seen is whether zoas are okay, and how answer and then tell us how you could tell the difference. Like, obviously you didn't purposefully put a stinging pally in, so.
Okay, I'm having a little trouble understanding you.
Sorry. I said, how can you tell the difference between a poly and a zoa, and are zoas safe in a seahorse tank?
Pallies typically have larger heads. They have longer tentacles. Sometimes it can be a really close call depending on what you're looking at. You have to basically do your research. Zoos can be a problem also. And one of the things that happens is if they get irritated, they will sting seahorses, and they can actually end up with lesions where they've been stung. And then it leaves them wide open for something like Vibrio or Myco or other problems. So my rule with seahorses, if it can sting, it's not going in one of my tanks.
Right. And sorry.
Did you read what happened with Lisa?
I was just
Lisa
gonna
Lou?
say, didn't that happen with Lisa? But go ahead. What do you? Can you tell the story, or do you?
Well, she all of a sudden saw her 2 seahorses with large red lumps, lesions on their tails. And Lucy said, it looks like you've got something in that tank, because they were both stung in the same area. What she found in there, I think it's called a raspberry anemone, little bitty thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she has now been fighting this for almost 2 months. It looks like she's got them back to health. She had to tube feed the female for at least a week that I recall.
Right.
The female wouldn't eat at all. And she's had them on triple sulfa and furan 2. She had them in the hospital tank for, I want to say, 5 or 6 weeks. She could tell you better than I could. And I mean, the lesions just kept, well, Vibrio, the lesions just kept spreading.
Sure.
And finally, they started to heal. And the seahorses are back in the main tank again.
Well, I just have to, I'm sorry, I was just going to say, I read the post just today. I figured out that I wasn't getting notifications from Seahorse Solutions group. And so I just read it today, and I made a comment because
Yeah, I thought.
You and Dan advised me to use those exact medications many years ago when I had a Vibrio issue due to, I know Lisa also had a temp spike, which contributed, I believe, because that's exactly what happened to me. And so I just wanted to thank all of you who continue to help people because, obviously many seahorses have been saved, mine and Lisa's, and I'm sure many more. So awesome advice.
What happened is her chiller messed up and her tank overheated, which probably irritated the heck out of the NEM. And that's how the whole problem started. And then it was very obvious that they got stung. And it just, I'm amazed, quite frankly, I'm amazed that they survived.
I feel
looking at some of the lesions.
I know, thank gosh. And I kind of feel like I thought it was Lisa's story. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought she had a story too, quite a while back though. But that Azoa had actually ended up being the culprit in a situation where her seahorse was stung. Am I wrong? Or
Yes.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was one of the things where when I saw the lesion, initially they didn't look real bad, but they kept getting worse and worse, and you can see the tissue necrosis and everything else.
Okay, gotcha.
And her female was refusing to eat anything.
Oh gosh.
And I got to take my hat off to her that she managed to get them to come around. But it all started with an equipment failure, basically.
Right. Yes, and she gave in her post in Seahorse Solutions group, she gives some really great advice about avoiding that and just warning that you got to check your system and stuff. So, but yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
The anemone she found there was actually a hitchhiker. She didn't even know it was in there.
Right. Of course, and that can happen anytime you're adding. So actually, what I was going to ask, and I thought I would ask. You about macroalgae, if you don't mind. How do you quarantine your macroalgae? And then Marina, just a heads up, I'm coming to you about fish, and then Wilson, I want to know what you keep in your tank. But Cheryl, go ahead.
Over the years, I've gotten to the point when I set up a tank, everything is started out dry rock. Everything it's basically everything's thoroughly sterilized to begin with. And then I use Fritz Turbo Start 900 if I need a tank right away to jumpstart a cycle on the tank. But nothing, even my macro's aquacultured, separate systems. And even when I get it, it goes into a separate quarantine tank because you never know if you're going to get aptasia or what else might pop up on that stuff. And I'm OCD when it comes to setting up sterile tanks.
Sure.
Because that's the only way you can be certain of what you've got in there.
Sure. With your macros, because I've had this question a lot, and I actually changed the way that I was doing things because I was doing exactly what you were describing, but I wasn't using any lighting over the quarantined macroalgae because they don't need much. They do need organics and stuff, but I ended up adding a light for the very reason that like the and feeding the tank because of the fact that aptasia and such won't even they could stay hidden if you're not feeding if there isn't food and light. So do you use a light on or do you just observe for a really long time?
Oh yeah, I actually have some reef breeder photons and lights like that, but I use them on the lowest level, and I still grow macro like crazy.
Yeah, baby, I love it. Okay, cool. Well, Did you have anything else to say about that? Oh, I don't think she heard me. Okay, Marina, I'm curious because you're the first person that's actually kept other fish in your tank, which I think is great. To each their own. But do you do any do you quarantine, and what's your method?
I quarantine everything. Even like snails and macroalgae, like absolutely everything. Um, with fish, I use the tank transfer method and also medicate them during the tank transfer method for bacterial infections and internal parasites and flukes.
Nice. And there's, there's we everyone has a different way, and we respect each other. And some people prefer to use an observational quarantine where they just watch, like Cheryl's willing to take that time. Other people will pre-medicate, and I don't think there's anything wrong either way. Everybody, can say, what do you guys think? But I think that's really smart, especially when you got seahorses, because they're just so easy. If there's a bacterial infection anywhere around, they're gonna get it. That's just,
Actually, that's tough.
I mean, they are. I don't mean to make them sound like little wussies. I
Yeah,
just,
but no, I know where you're coming from.
and Marina,
The thing is,
go ahead, Cheryl.
I try to avoid using antibiotics as much as possible. I rarely have had to use them in recent years. But again, setting everything up completely sterile to begin with really reduces the potential for a lot of problems. And I know so many people that I've had this discussion with, and they go out and the fish store talks them into buying live rock. Well, you're bringing in Aptasia, you're bringing in hydroids, a NAM, things like that. You also don't know what kind of bacterial problems are in that system, in what they're selling you. And I just found it much easier just to start from scratch on everything.
Sure. Well,
I agree.
I know you two do. The people that have been doing this a long time typically really agree on that point, and I honestly agree too. But I do completely understand that many people, aren't as seahorse, focused as some of the people. I mean, because really, Ray, Cheryl, folks like you spent years and years and years trying to figure out seahorses. You were the veterans, so of course your focus is just seahorses, and mine is too. But it's just because I absolutely adore them. But I completely comprehend why other people want other activity in the tank, So I think it's important to at least share. I think Marina's method, is important to be shared for sure. Because, yeah, go ahead.
A friend of mine, I had this discussion with him before he set up a seahorse tank. And the fish store told him he couldn't do a fishless sample. Fish store told him he had to start with live rock. And he did all the stuff the fish store told him to do. He ended up with a massive flatworm infestation. He had Aptasia everywhere. He ended up with hydroids, and he ended up losing all the seahorses.
Oh no! And it was all from.
He was just, yeah, he was just starting out, and it broke my heart to see it happen. And I tried to tell him up front, but when somebody's starting new, they kind of tend to push the pocket a bit, I think.
Sure.
I think one of the problems is that sometimes people start up that way and they don't have any problems. And when they post about it, either on the forums or on social media, then other people sit and they look at both sides of the story, and they figure, well, this is easier, so we'll go with that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, first of all, they may not have the same luck, and they may introduce things that are going to be problematic. They're also the situation where seahorses are like people. They're going to have all different levels of immunity. Like their systems are, with some people are never ever get sick. You got other people that are sick all the time. But with seahorses, if you're going to have a preponderance of any of them at any level, they're going to be at the weak of the immune system.
I know
So
that.
when you get
Sorry.
seahorses and you put them in the system, you might have one that is fine, is not going to get affected by the way you started, but you might have three others that are going to die from it.
Sure.
And if you don't start off with a sterile system, how do you really know what the problem was?
Sure. And I know I just
Mhm.
wanted to pipe in because Dan must be working or busy. We miss you, Dan. But he always says that when you see something, well, the advice he's always given me is when you see something online or you see someone saying they're doing something online, check back with them in 6 months before you try whatever they're doing. Let's see if it worked, because it's very easy for someone to say, look what I did, it works, and then they disappear like they used to do on the forums. When he started telling people about skimmers, a lot of people argued or had different setups, and then they would disappear, and people would still think because of that post that it was something that was good or could be done. So anyways, but okay, Wilson, I want to ask you first of all, what would you like to be called? Miss Wilson, what would you?
What was that?
Everybody calls me Wilson.
Okay, Wilson. All right, Wilson. What kind of other
Is it the
coral?
same as the Kim Wilson that's posting?
Is it what?
What is it?
Is the Kim Wilson that's posting?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Well, then there we go. I didn't realize that, but okay, cool. Okay, so I'm curious what you keep in your tank, and what you think about all this.
I wish that I could get more into corals. I've kept the yellow finger Gorgonian, the red finger Gorgonian, the purple ribbons, the
Yeah.
plumes. I only have one purple ribbon left, and it's really small. And I have some really beautiful macro from Lucy at
Oh,
Calurpa. But my husband has put his foot down that since we've upgraded every single thing in the tank, there's nothing more live that's going into the tank.
gotcha.
So I'm kind of at a roadblock. But I
Gotcha.
do have 4 of my sea puppies left. I have Lucy got some, another person got some. And so I'm trying to keep mostly girls.
Yeah.
No more boys. So they will be ready to move to the display tank soon.
But I think that's so amazing that you did so well, with it, with the babies. That's just so great, and I'm glad that they got now that's another thing I just wanted. It is, and I wanted to say, you're right. And thank you to whoever just subscribed or chatted. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. But what I was going to say is that's another key difference between people who keep coral and fish in their seahorse displays and people who don't. The difference a lot of times is people who are aiming to breed. So people that are like, if Dan were here, he would have absolutely probably not much to say, because as his focus is breeding, he doesn't have anything else in his, in his displays or in his setups. So that's just another thing, to consider when you watch this, because unfortunately you got some old school folks and then a very careful person. So thank goodness for Marina and Wilson for coming in and sharing what they do, because so it's not all the same thing. Okay, let's go ahead.
And I think it's in part too based on your orientation. Like I know Ray is, when he was keeping seahorses, or he still is, his primary thing was propagation, and so is mine. So I'm not into worrying about getting a bunch of corals and everything else in there. And as much as I would love to have a breeding pair of mandarin dragonets, I will probably never do it, at least not in a seahorse tank, in case of disease transmission. So it depends on your orientation.
Sorry, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm trying to read comments at the same time. I apologize. I just wanted to say, I just saw it was Cindy, aka Coral Gal. Thank you so much for super chatting. And dang it, we still got to get you in here to talk about coral. Okay, and super stickers. I didn't even know we had those yet. And Philosophish, I do see your comments. I'm trying to follow them, but also hang in the room. So guys, if you see a comment or question that I'm missing, please feel free to interrupt me and speak up. But Cindy, hey,
Well,
what?
I'm so excited to put a face with the name.
Which one? What? I didn't hear.
Cheryl. I'm so excited to put a face with the name.
Isn't she amazing, Cheryl? Um, I know it gets confusing in here. Wilson's saying she's so excited to put a face with a name. That's the benefit of this, you guys. Jump in here, get to know us. But Cheryl, I also wanted to tell you that, where did it go? Someone said it. Nicole said she just wanted to say how lucky we all are to have you. You're such an amazing source of information, and you do so with such patience and sense of humor. You are, and then it cuts off. But I'm sure she was just saying how amazing you are. We appreciate you and
The
everybody.
thing is, keeping corals requires basically a different type of maintenance than just doing a fish only tank, which is another factor. Because you have to start worrying about, I mean, I don't worry about phosphates unless I start getting some green hair algae. Phosphates are really not, you want some with corals, but you want to really watch it. You're going to have to really watch your alk, your calcium, things like that. And I've done some experiments with monitoring calcium and things like that and seeing if there was a difference in how the seahorses do. And much of the stuff that you do when you're taking care of corals, you really don't have to concern yourself with seahorses.
Sure.
But
no, you're.
I mean,
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, corals, depending on the type of corals you're having, if you're doing, obviously you don't want to do stonies with seahorses, but if you're doing stonies, they need calcium, and they will go through calcium. Magnesium is another one. And I did some experiments with seahorses several years ago, monitoring my calcium levels and that kind of stuff. And I saw no difference between when I was supplementing calcium and when I was not supplementing calcium on the seahorses.
Oh.
So they have different growth requirements.
Sure. And you made an excellent point, because when you add coral to any aquarium, whether it be seahorse or otherwise, obviously that turns into a different type of aquarium. Then you've got a reef. And Dan always mentions, thank you, whoever just super chatted. You guys are so awesome. Okay, Dan always mentions that temperature. Like a lot of the corals will need a higher temperature, and you have to keep seahorses at a lower temperature. I've heard him on quite a few different Wine Wednesdays, advising people through. A lot of people want to set up attached aquariums, like attach their seahorse tank to their reef to benefit from all the water. And his number one thing that he says is, well, what's the temperature in your reef aquarium? So the thing that Cheryl just said was absolutely true, and what Dan says is always true. But to get around that, it's very easy to keep soft corals and the coral that we've been talking about that don't need that highlighting and don't need the high temperature. But Cheryl's absolutely right. Once you jump in, then it's a different situation. But the soft corals and stuff don't need the calcium either, has been my experience. You are going to have more tests you got to run. You got to watch things more carefully for sure. But I just want to ask really quickly, Marina, if you're able, have you noticed that it's more work to keep the coral extra fish and seahorses, or do you think that it's, no biggie?
I actually think it's almost less work. I find the kind of corals that I keep, they're really sort of tough, hardy corals that grow quite quickly, and I actually think they help to take up some of the bio load.
Very good point.
Like the leathers and morphs and stuff.
For sure. I do the same thing with macros.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'll be quiet now, but I agree. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna say, they grow sort of so quickly that they're actually taking up a lot of the nutrients, and like the morphs and things. They actually sort of catch sometimes the leftover food, and so I find it a little helpful. And the next fish that I think I'm thinking of adding is actually a pair of sand sifting gobies, just because in a tank that I don't want to be adding heaps and heaps of wave makers to, I find that food sometimes settles on the sand, and I do have a bunch of snails, but I just think fish would be a lot more efficient at at sort of turning over that sand and keeping it clean. So I'm trying to sort of obviously adding corals and things to make it look pretty,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm trying to add things with a bit of a purpose as well.
Very smart. I love your answer, and that's a great. You just made a terrific point. Like most of the people in here, I'm not sure about Wilson, but I know Dan and Cheryl usually keep bare bottom. Well, I don't know. Ray, do you keep sand in your tanks? Did you hear me?
Nope,
No. Okay.
but I didn't in my reef tank either.
Really? Now, see, I had sand in my reef, but
Back in '94 when I started, I was using plenums and reverse flow, pre-filtered under gravel, and then I heard about the Berlin method, and I switched to that, and I was never happier.
nice. Well, I
It
mean,
was a lot less work.
and see, but
Just
Marina,
a personal choice.
sure, and the bottom line is that Marina's point's very valid too. That if that's the route you are going to take, that sometimes the fish and the coral can actually make it less work. It just depends on what you're trying to do. Chimp, I just wanted to say hi. I see you. Mwah, thank you. And we got to get you guys jumping in here, letting us know how you're doing. But Sean, very fast. I'm
Can I if
you guys talk. I have to plug in the computer or we're all gonna die. So go ahead and talk. I'll be right back. Why is this not working?
Marina, what is your
Yeah.
seahorse tank?
Okay, there it is. Okay. Sorry.
Pardon?
Sorry.
Temperature. It's 20 degrees Celsius. I'll quickly grab. Let me quickly convert that to
That's
Fahrenheit. Give me a
Fahrenheit.
second.
What is it, Ray?
20 is Fahrenheit.
I still
20 degrees Celsius, 68 Fahrenheit. You take if you take the centigrade temperature and multiply it by 9/5 and then add 32, you'll get Celsius. Or going the other way, if you've got Fahrenheit, subtract the 32 and then multiply by 5/9, and
And
that'll give you Celsius.
and we're educational
There
too.
you go.
Okay. Go ahead, Marina. Sorry.
Instead of-
I just pull it up on my computer.
Right.
Well, my mind still can do it in the head there faster than I can find it on the computer.
Yeah, hats off to
Actually,
Ray.
one of my favorite ones when I was first got into seahorses is that was back in the days that they can't handle flow, they like flow. And I had a 55-gallon tank that I was filtering with a Flueville FX5 that was putting out 900 gallons an hour on a 55-gallon tank. And those seahorses were all over the place.
Oh, I bet.
But I had the flow set up in such a way that they had the high flow areas and then directed some of the flow off of the other stuff. Crazy darn seahorses would dive in front of the return.
Yep.
Or I'm sorry, the outflow, get blasted across the tank and go right back in and dive right back into the flow. And it's hysterical to watch.
I want to make
Yep,
sure.
it happens all the time.
I was going to say, I want to make sure Marina gets her, I missed her question, but I want to make sure it gets answered, but totally agree, Cheryl. My seahorses were bored. I mean, that's how they acted, is bored. I mean, seahorses aren't real active seahorses, but they would just sit there and be so bored. I finally added more flow, and they were just all, they were so active all of a sudden. And the other thing is bubbles. Everybody thought that, I mean, and there's some line, you don't want air getting into the pouch and blah, blah, blah. But my seahorses jump in the bubbles they can't jump, but you know what I'm saying. And that's another thing that, well, anyways, Marina, I missed your question because I was plugging it in. Were you able to ask it and get it answered, or?
I didn't ask one. I was just answering one, which
Oh,
was what temperature I keep
I'm sorry.
the tank at. Yeah, so it was worked it out to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, but there is a little bit of a swing, so it would be between 68 and 69.
Well, that's great for seahorses. The coral don't give you any trouble with that because I know even some gorgonians can get kind of iffy, but you don't have any trouble.
I haven't yet, but we'll see how it goes. If anything is unhappy, obviously I don't want to keep anything that's going to be unhappy or unhealthy, so I'll move it across to one of the reef tanks
Sure.
if it's not happy in there.
Well, and I never personally had problems. I just know that, I've read certain Gorgonians. So don't worry. And definitely let us know if anything like that comes up. Okay, well, really quick, guys, we can talk about whatever you guys want, of course. And I do want to kind of get these to be a little bit shorter so that people will come and not feel like they got to be stuck all night. I haven't given Wilson much of a chance to talk if she wanted to, but really quickly, let's just go through and say, like, even though a lot of us don't keep so many types of coral and seahorses. I covered some different things that are optionable. We mentioned Seahorse Savvy article that's a great resource, but and I wanted to read off what Lucy keeps and etc. But what are some things that you've seen that have worked out? Like I know we talked gobies, blennies. What other fish have you seen? Like obviously there's a huge debate about clownfish. I say no way, Jose, because my clownfish are jerkheads. But I know that a lot of people get away with that and don't have a problem. Welcome to whomever just joined, and goodbye. Okay, jump in and out whenever you want, guys. It's open chat. But anyone who Wilson, what are some things that you've seen that have worked?
Uh, one of my favorites that I have kept with seahorses years ago was a royal grandma.
Okay. Now see that.
And most people don't talk about them. The only thing is that they tend to be fairly fast swimming, but they spend a lot of time hiding out, so they're not zipping around all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, dragonettes, gobies, stay away from assessors, stay away from clowns. In fact, a friend of mine had a gold assessor that he bought, put it in his reef tank, and it killed both his mandrels.
Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
Yeah. He caught that. He had to trap it and get it out of there because it was going after everything.
Oh my gosh.
Obviously, had fish with a bad attitude.
Right.
Yeah. Obviously, stay away from tangs. I have another friend. He had a 500-gallon tank, and he had a parrotfish that was probably at least 8 inches long. And one of his tangs apparently got upset and laid the parrotfish open from the tail all the way to the gills.
Wow.
He spurred him. So obviously, tangs are not. They can act pretty peaceful,
Right.
and technically they're vegetors, but they can get really nasty when they get territorial.
Sure.
I know people that try to keep clowns are territorial.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen large adult clowns hit the glass in a tank when a person would walk by and hit it full force.
Wow. Well, so I mean, we've done a good job covering. You got the things that you want to look for in a fish would be they aren't too fast where they're gonna gobble up all the food before a seahorse can slowly make its way over and get some. You don't want any aggression. So and Cheryl made a good point. Anything really territorial because that leads to aggression. Cheryl, I feel like I cut you off. What else were you gonna say?
Well, again, wrasses can be pretty nasty also.
Mm-hmm.
As a friend of mine posted one day, somebody come and pick up this one, kiss my wrasse.
I was going to say, I was really shocked that you said royal, I know you pronounced it different than I did, but royal grama, because I thought that, I was trying to sneak in Google what family they belong to, because I thought that they were part of that. Oh, I can't think of the word, but I thought the family they belonged to was considered aggressive. So I must be mistaken, obviously, because I can't even find it.
My royal grandma would never go in a seahorse tank.
Because of aggression, or what? Why do you feel that way, Ray? aggression.
Hell, he was attacking my powder blue tang.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, guys, it depends on the personality of the particular fish. You know, if you gotta, but it, you know, I can't remember exactly how Dan always says it, but the bottom line is that, you know, it's what you're willing to risk in any aquarium. So obviously everyone here really cares about their seahorses and no one's going out of their way to do anything. Marina is setting up a beautiful seahorse tank with other fish and coral, but she has been clear she's willing to move things if it doesn't work out. And I can't wait to see it. Hopefully someday you'll turn your camera around, Marina, and show us your tank. But anyways, you know, just
Yeah, quick side note.
yes.
Both Singularia and Nephthia also are beautiful soft corals.
Yeah.
They're a little harder to keep alive, but once they get going, the green plow Nephthia is stunning.
Yeah. No, I
If you
agree.
can find it more.
I absolutely agree. Wilson, I was wanting you to give you a chance to shout out. Have you seen anything that you know has worked out for people as far as fish or
I wish I have what not to do.
Oh, okay.
My own take.
Go ahead, tell us what not to do.
So, so I got a male psychedelic mandarin and decided he needed a girlfriend, and we got him a girlfriend. And Lemon, who is just this beautiful yellow seahorse, she got a little stressed out because they would swim very quickly together at certain times in the tank. Girl turned blue or brown. Sorry, she turned brown. She has not turned back yellow. Even though we got rid of the girlfriend, so very sad about that. And I also had a jawfish that my LFS said, "Oh yeah, no problem." And within 2 hours, I was trying to catch the fish and take it right back.
Sure. Natural jawfish?
Oh, it was terrible.
Which ones were they?
It had a yellow face and a white body. He was beautiful, but man,
I kept some yellow faces for several years. Never had a problem with them.
And it could be just that. You know?
Other than the fact that they kept trying to fill each other's burrows up with sand.
Right.
So yeah, I have the one psychedelic mandarin, and he's happy being alone without a girlfriend, and that's okay. I'm kind of sad Lemon never turned back to Lemon.
That jawfish usually are not really aggressive.
I think he just moved too quickly for Lemon's liking, just like the female mandarin.
Yeah.
Have you attempted really quickly? Have you attempted like any kind of bright yellow decorations, chains, even if you don't want them?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. I figured you did. Just thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
Did you try?
Extra.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the only other thing that I could think of, and I'm sure you've tried it, but did you try the blue background around the tank?
No.
Well, if you're cool with it, the seahorse is going to be what color the seahorse wants to be. You feel me? But if it's really important to you, that's worked for me before. I've watched my seahorses get a much brighter color because of the fact that I put a yellow. Blue. I used light blue, and I literally put it on the sides and the back. Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, sky blue, not a darker blue.
Right.
The lighter blue is more effective.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think that's an option for me because we have put the dark tint before I had seen any posts like that.
Well, you're showing us what not to do. It's cool. We're good. And I bet
one other addition to a tank. I know a lot of people like to add shrimp because they're a great cleanup crew. However, if the shrimp are in the tank long enough, they figure out when the male is about ready to deliver. They will all come out and get up as high as they can in the tank and wait for those fry to surface and start picking them off like gangbusters.
Really?
I've seen that also.
Do you mean like peppermint shrimp? Like peppermint shrimp?
I'm sorry?
Do you mean like peppermint shrimp or?
Peppermints, ghosts, I'm trying. I think those were the only two I had in there. But they somehow it took them several months. But once they got that pattern down, it was easy for me to tell when I had a male that was about ready to deliver, because all of a sudden the shrimp would appear from nowhere
Oh my
at the top of the
gosh.
tank.
That's just crazy to me. I never experienced that, but it's good that you're sharing it. I mean, it's a good thing, you know, to consider, I suppose. Um, Go ahead.
That's when I evicted the shrimp.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, I have a really quick question for you on that because I did see a post in Seahorse Sources group that was discussing bristleworms and etc. Like, what do you do when you figure out that something's not working? Whether it be something that came as a hitchhiker, you put a fish in and realize it's not working. What do you guys do? Anybody?
Uh,
I
I,
don't know. I haven't really had that problem.
Really? Okay. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I was just going to say, I don't know if anybody else has ever experienced that with shrimp, but these shrimp are way too smart for their own good.
How'd you get them out?
I get very aggressive using multiple nets simultaneously.
Very
I'm
nice.
ambidextrous, so it's easy for me.
The
Gotcha.
only shrimp I ever put in was a cleaner shrimp,
Yeah.
and it was with my reed eye, and he didn't last more than about 4 hours.
Yeah.
Was he
They
picking
tore him to
them?
pieces.
I've even seen a seahorse fry when I'm feeding them newly hatched baby brine shrimp, literally work together and get a feeding ball going and corral the brine shrimp into one area and start picking them off.
Oh my gosh. How
It was
cool.
really fascinating when I saw. I'm like, holy moly!
That is
They're not
awesome.
they're not stupid. They learn.
Sure. And hey, Ray, I wanted to ask you too, because it kind of jumped around for a second, but there's a lot of questions about cleaner shrimp with seahorses. And did you say that the seahorses picked it apart or it hurt the seahorses?
And the seahorses took it apart. They
Yeah.
were adult reed eye. Like they'd been giving me fry for a couple of years at that point, so they were a good size. But the cleaner shrimp was a good size too. Like he was in my reef tank, and I just figured I'll put him in and see about they'll clean up the tank in there and make it easier for me. Well, he didn't last.
Wow. And I've heard the reverse too. I've heard that the literal cleaner shrimp that, clean fish and etc. that, sometimes they really irritate a seahorse. I haven't seen it. I've just heard it. And it's interesting that you guys are saying this. I know Lucy has told me before that she has a hard time like keeping any kind of shrimp because of her big, beautiful yellow seahorse. I can't remember its name, but that it eats them all. And I've got peppermint shrimp in my tank to this day that the seahorses never even look at, as far as I've seen. And the whole reason I got them was to get rid of Aptasia, and it's the only thing that ever worked for me aside from treating. So, anyways, interesting that's your
Right.
experience.
Years ago, I don't remember who it was. They were raising fuscus, and they posted a video on seahorse.org because they'd added some shrimp. And the shrimp were large. I mean, fuscus don't get that big. And those fuscus teamed up and literally tore those shrimp to pieces. Wow. They went after them like there was no tomorrow. And it was a team effort.
Okay, guys. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm trying to jump and get in the comments too because I can't see them on my screen today for some reason. Dylan said that he has a conch that keeps his sand very clean, and that's if anybody wants to talk cleanup crew and what you use, that's a great thing because I did see another post. I can't remember which group it was in, but someone had added something like I think a urchin or something, and Lisa was making sure that the person knew that that's probably not a really great idea. So sometimes we had even cleanup crew that maybe might not be a good idea, but a conch, love those. Dylan also mentioned jawfish. We were just talking about jawfish. Let's see. Clownfish are total jerks. Agree. Mine are, I can't even put my hand in the tank without them literally attacking me. And, yeah, George on Coral 12G. He's great. I haven't seen the video you're talking about, but I'm sure it's great. So I just wanted to make sure I got to all the comments. So, what other things should we, what other things can you think of that anyone in the comment section or anyone who watches this later, if you are keeping something in your seahorse tank that's working for you, hasn't worked for you, or etc., please share in the comments or, let us know now, etc., whatever. But what else do you guys, should we really, wait, there was one more question. I know I'm jumping back and forth, sorry. Nicole said her Mandarin literally cuddles the seahorses. That's awesome. Ooh, I know there's one more question I have to get to, but I did want to bring up the point, guys, and get your opinions. And Cheryl, I think, touched on this or Ray might have touched on this at the very beginning. But one of the things that a lot of people want to keep with seahorses is pipefish. Cheryl, do you want to sound off about why pipefish might not be such a great plan?
If the pipes are truly captive bred from the same source, such as what ORA is currently doing, it could conceivably be worth it. I know someone that bought a couple seahorses, added a wild-caught pipe, and the seahorses were dead within 6 weeks.
Right.
And I do not, under any circumstances, recommend mixing wild-caughts with captive breds. The only seahorses that I would even consider mixing would be reed-eye and erectus, simply because they do overlap in their home range. People are buying combs all the time, putting them in with erectus, and it's ending with disasters. Combs, we know, are carriers of Uronema. Captive bred, they're probably cleaned up fairly well. Erectus are carriers of Vibrio.
Right.
We know that at the wrong temperatures. These species are from 2 different parts of the world, and it normally proves fatal for both. And it's the same with bringing in wild-caught pipes. You don't want to do it.
Great point. I forgot to even mention, about mixing species. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. And is there a deeper, I kind of wish Dan was here now, because he always talks about this deeper underlying reason where it's, you already said they're from different parts of the world curing different diseases, and captive bred, they'll be cleaned up. So there's a better chance, but still just, maybe just reed-eye and erectus. But,
just because they're cleaned, they are producing and appear to be thriving, does not mean they're still not potential carriers, whether it be a bacteria, a virus, or a parasite.
Sure, they could be even asymptomatic. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
Yeah. We know that seahorses can live with a lot of interesting problems for prolonged periods. And as such, they could be carrying. I spent 6 months with a wild-caught pair of combs, just patching them back to health. Mm-hmm. And over $300 on Alyssa shrimp, because they wouldn't eat brine shrimp.
Of course.
And I kept them for over 7 years. But I spent 6 months jumping out of bed every morning to see if they were still alive. Mm. And I treated them with chloroquine phosphate and various other things, because we'd gotten the histo that showed that they were carrying Uronema.
Oh, geez. Well, I'm gonna guess you were successful because you're amazing. But what I was thinking of was just, I know that Dan said it before, I can't remember the exact wordage, but basically it's something about, because of the fact that the seahorses and pipefish are in the same family or whatever, they're just, and I'm guessing it's basically what you're describing, that even 2 species of seahorses, especially if you're talking about wild caught, but then, any kind of signathid, that, you're going to have a higher risk of trouble, especially if they're from different areas. Yeah. And so just go captive bred, people. Go ahead, Cheryl.
If you want to pipefish and you're going to go wild caught, go get yourself some alligator pipes and pick yourself up some wild caught erectus. That would be probably your best mix.
Right. Well, I think Alyssa has. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
They're basically, their home ranges overlap also.
Gotcha. Okay.
But don't go put blue stripes or whatever in with wild caught Arctus or vice versa.
Yeah.
It's a recipe for disaster.
And I'm curious to anyone in the audience who has tried to keep pipefish with seahorses, how did it work out for you? I'm sure there are situations where I think Alyssa was even breeding pipefish. I could be wrong, but I know that there are captive bred out there even more often now. And so, if you're in a situation where you're keeping seahorses and pipefish, I think Susan does. Somebody does really well, and it works. And I think they're just captive
Susan
bred.
does.
Was it?
Susan keeps them, and
Yeah.
Alyssa does breed red.
Sure.
You got all captive bred, so didn't you?
Susan,
You got all captive bred.
are you talking to me?
Wilson.
Okay.
I don't have any, but I know that Susan does.
And they are
And
captive
Alyssa
bred.
breeds the
Yeah.
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 Sorry, we kind of jump over each other, guys. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Yeah, it's different too when you're dealing with captive breds. I'm old school. When I first started, there was only actually 2 breeders in the U.S. that were raising Arctus.
Mm. Wow.
That was a while ago.
Yeah.
That was Dan Underwood, who was actually at that point just started out, and Jorge Gomez Jurado, who designed the Baltimore Aquarium's Seahorse exhibit. He's a PhD. Wow. And he sold under Draco Marine.
Yep, I've heard of it. Luckily for the rest of us, now all you guys do. And Susan, I'm glad that you brought that up, Wilson, because Susan is excellent with her. I mean, she's a breeder too on a smaller level, but she keeps them with she keeps seahorses with pipefish very successfully. So it just goes to show you guys, stick to captive bred, or literally don't. If you're going to go with wild caught, get everything wild caught. And with captive bred, you just stick with captive bred and or use a really great quarantine method like Marina is doing. Because I know even Lucy keeps tons of, blennies and gobies. And I'm going to go look at her list in a second. But guys, I don't want to miss any questions. So we're jumping back for 1 second. I'm dying to know what kind of wine you're drinking too, Wilson. But Nicole asked a question. I spouted off something about bubbles, and she said, Kelly, Kelly, you bring up a great point. I've been so cautious about bubbles. Is this something you can all explain better? Bubbles, good or bad? And there was more, but it cut off. And I know what she's talking about because, we've proven that skimmers are good, not bad. But I do know also that there's this really strong theory or thought process that if you get that bubbles might be the cause of pouch emphysema in some circumstances, and so I think that's why especially old school folks were really afraid of skimmers, really afraid of too much flow on the top or anything that or airlines that cause bubbles. Oh my. And like we've seen that Cheryl uses airlines, and I've posted the videos and pictures, and most of us have, of seahorses bebopping in the bubbles. So does anybody, Cheryl or anybody here, know the difference, or how you could tell someone good or bad with bubbles? Cheryl, do you know what I'm talking about when I say people are afraid of bubbles because they're afraid it'll cause pouch emphysema?
Oh yeah, well that was the old myth for years. Pouch emphysema and that kind of stuff was caused by tiny microscopic bubbles in the water column. In reality, since that time, we've learned that it's actually buildup of carbonic anhydrase in the pouch. As to precisely what all initiates that, I don't think we still have a clear understanding on it. But it's one of those things where they were saying microbubbles will not cause problems. And the only time, in fact, I've had a problem, and it wasn't microbubbles, was an open-ended airline. I had a seahorse that I raised. He would flirt with his mate. He'd go over, hitch to the airline, inflate his pouch, and float to the top of the tank. After the third time, in less than 15 minutes, I gave him a pouch evac. I moved the line and named him, "Here's Your Sign."
Love it. I was gonna say, I know that we've come so far in proving that, or not me, you, whoever has come so far. What?
Micro bubbles do not create pouch emphysema. They do not create internal gas bubble disease.
Sure.
In fact, still question, since we know it's built up of carbonic anhydrase, I'm assuming there probably is a bacterial problem going on with the seahorse that's predisposing it to these conditions.
Sure.
So we used to think that, we used to think floaters, fry floaters that you get, we used to think that they were ingesting air. So everybody was like, you have to run heavy aeration to keep them off the surface. I'm sure Ray remembers that.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember those. But when I was raising reed for years, I was raising them in 4-liter gallon jars, wide mouth jars.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have the air turned up. It was open-ended, but I'd have the air turned up there. The fry couldn't swim where they wanted, but it was no problem because the density of the Artemia was such that as the fry are getting blown around, they just have to snick because there's always Artemia right close to them.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I love about the round tubs that so many of us have gone to now, is with the pelagic species, you can adjust the flow so that they'll literally point snout into the flow and hold steady there and snick the food as it comes by, so they're not having to chase it.
Oh yeah.
And I found it got a much higher survival rate going that route. But that's again something that was much more recent. That's come out.
I was not allowed to put a giant round tub in the
No.
room. I was told absolutely not.
I hear you.
We've learned so much, and we still have so much more to learn.
Sure.
It's a continuous, ongoing process.
I personally, the way I got away with it, Wilson, just to let you know, when I was doing it, is that instead of putting some 90-gallon big huge tub, I kind of mocked maybe Alyssa's setup is like ridiculously far-fetched great, but I'm saying like Colby, I can't think of his last name now, but Colby, actually, I talked to him at MBI, Marine Breeding Initiative, and these other places, and he gave me pictures and kind of a walkthrough on how to set it up in littler tubs. And so I just didn't tell anybody, and everybody came home to these little tubs, and I only had a couple. So it worked out for me for a minute, but I just wanted to jump back really quickly, guys, and Nicole, if people don't, even the smartest people like Cheryl know, and I love Cheryl and I believe everything Cheryl says, but nobody's really exactly positively sure what's going on with pouch emphysema. There's a lot of good files. Dan's written some too online, but I still think there probably is something to supersaturation, if that's what you're maybe thinking of and talking about, because if you have a something set up improperly, I'm pretty convinced that that's what happened in one of my tanks when they actually got gas bubble disease, not pouch emphysema. But I just really felt like it was because I figured out that the attachment that I had was leaking. It was letting air in before it went through the skimmer or after. Anyways, I think there's still probably something to it, but we've just come a long way in figuring out that it's probably more of a bacterial thing, organics thing, etc. So go bubbles is my answer. I think everybody here pretty much agrees. Go bubbles. You're good with bubbles, right? Everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And I was just trying to see if anybody else was saying anything. Hey, Victoria. Hey, Cindy again. And Chimp said, now I'm interested in checking out the Seahorse exhibit at the National Aquarium in the Baltimore Inner Harbor. I love all the aquariums. They're very, very cool. And Ray's writing something, but I'll shut up and start talking to you guys again. Okay, so before I read off Lucy's list, guys, or we get on to a different subject, is there anything else that you would recommend or absolutely not recommend for a seahorse tank, whether it be coral or fish?
Octopus.
No octopus. Okay. No octopus.
Somebody asked that on Facebook.
They don't stay in the damn tank anyway.
Horses.
Somebody asked that?
The octopus can crawl across whatever. And
somebody posted that today.
Wait. Time out, because I couldn't hear you guys. You were both talking. Cheryl first. What did you say? Somebody posted that?
Yeah, somebody posted it on Facebook today. Could they keep an octopus with their seahorses?
I mean, we don't make all questions are good questions, but yeah, please don't do that. And Ray, what were you saying?
The answer was the answer no.
Yeah, the octopus, they'll crawl out of any tiny little thing. If they can get their snout through, they can move their whole body through, and they'll move out of the tank, and they can crawl across whatever they need to get to another tank and get into that tank and eat whatever they can out of that tank.
Yeah, and the thing is, and I can see them hanging on to, with each leg, I can see them hanging on to a seahorse. I'm envisioning this. It's like, no.
Gosh. Okay. Yeah, no. And anybody else see anything else or have any other tips, tricks? Marina, I know I haven't given you much time to pipe in.
Don't mix freshwater seahorses with the saltwater ones.
Oh, did you see that post?
Every time I turn around, there's somebody looking for freshwater seahorses.
Did you see the Joker that posted that he had freshwater seahorses?
No, really?
I don't think I saw someone said they had it.
Yeah. Well, I deleted that post.
Oh.
Wait.
Where he said, "Oh, I have freshwater seahorses." No, you don't.
Right. So go ahead and explain, Cheryl. I
think they did, but they're plastic.
Oh.
we had a Joker years ago that posted on seahorse.org that he found a seahorse on the sound and he took it home and put it in his bird bath and it was doing fine. So me being me, I requested a photo. And he comes back and goes, "Oh, a bird must have eaten it."
No.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was throwing anyone who just saw what I just did, I was throwing Stitch trying to get the significant other's attention because my phone died and now I can't read off. What is going on here? Do you guys hear that craziness? Okay, it quit. Anyways, my phone died, so now I can't even read Lucy's list. But I'll try to post it later. What were you gonna say, Marina? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say sometimes the problem with people kind of writing posts that are a bit of a joke, which people with a bit of experience might get the joke, but others might not. And even I've seen things like really dangerous, like Euphyllia corals that have quite a nasty sting. I've seen people sort of write, "Oh yeah, they're fine with your seahorses," obviously being sarcastic. But I kind of like to jump in and say, "Oh, maybe try this instead. That's not a good one," because I'm sure people do go and do try it. And I know a few people who have kept quite dangerous corals with their seahorses, and one actually said, "Oh well, nothing's happened yet, so it's fine." And I just sort of think, just because it hasn't happened yet, doesn't mean it won't.
You are absolutely right. And unfortunately, oh, keeps getting really weird. Sorry, guys. Unfortunately, sometimes those people aren't being sarcastic. Sometimes either they're someone who just thinks nothing's happened yet, and sometimes they're just, trolls, basically, on a post. So that's why I think when we get together and talk about this stuff, guys, I know we jump over each other sometimes, but I think it's so important and so good. And these groups, Marina, when you see something like that, please do comment. You're so sweet and nice. I know you'd never be a troll back, so I'm saying please do comment and say, maybe not, because you'll have all of us backing you up for sure. But yeah, no, you're right. Wilson, was there anything that I missed letting you chat about? Anything else you had to say about? Okay, she's like, nope, I just come. What kind of wine are you drinking?
Nope, I need to go feed my aquatic children.
Okay, we're gonna actually, yeah, there we go. I'm with you, Wilson, now. Okay, I'm actually gonna call it for tonight anyways, because I keep saying they're gonna be shorter, and then we go an hour and a half. So, thank you so much to everybody who joined. My phone's off. If I missed any questions, I really apologize, but we'll be back next week. And if you have any ideas for the topic for next week, I always decide by Monday, Sunday-ish. So message me, comment, whatever, and we'll see you guys next week. Everybody say bye.
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 All right. Cheers, guys. See you next week. Bye.